Hello and welcome to the Vacayability Rest Stop podcast. Vacayability is a review website where people with disabilities or unique abilities can rate and review places based upon accessibility. Accessibility doesn't just mean physical, but includes all types of accessibility needs. Physical, blind and low vision, deaf and hard of hearing, sensory friendly, allergy friendly, and more. Head to www.vacayability.com to check it out. Each episode, take a break from your norm, and we will be talking about a different accessibility or inclusion tourism topic with a different guest. I am today's host, Natasha Graves, the founder of Vacayability. Today, we'll be talking about studying abroad with chronic illness with our guest, Erin Harton. Erin is a chronic illness warrior with POTS. She is a recent graduate of Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania and had the opportunity to study abroad in Norway. So without further ado, let's welcome Erin. Hey, Erin.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about my experiences abroad. As you mentioned, I studied abroad in Norway. I was in the city of Tromsø, Norway, which is in the northern section. And I studied abroad last year in the fall. So I've been reminiscing about my time abroad, and I'd love to, share what I learned about being in a foreign place with chronic illness.
All right. Well, how about you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself? I know you kind of started, but let's give them a little bit more of your background.
Yeah, so I was, as you mentioned, I just graduated from a college in Pennsylvania. I was at Gettysburg College, and I have been diagnosed with POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, for I don't know, since I was a teenager, a lot of years at this point.
Yeah.
So that was my main diagnosis that I have, struggled with throughout school. I have some of, the various accompanying diagnoses that go along with that. But that was my main, I guess, obstacle in having to just go through college and then deciding to study abroad. Studying abroad wasn't something that I had on my radar at all. Especially when I was looking at colleges, that was not, I was at a point where I was just kind of happy to go to college.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Being able to go abroad was not something that I had ever expected. I have never traveled outside of the country before going abroad.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, it was a completely new experience for me. I had to get I didn't have a passport.
Wow.
So I had to get a passport, and, I kind of didn't know what I was getting into.
Right. Which could have been a good thing.
Yeah, it could have been a good thing. And I think it was a good thing, for the most part. But, it was such a great experience, and, it's definitely something that I recommend, that if you have the opportunity to do that, it's something definitely to consider doing.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with that. I didn't study abroad in undergrad just because I had so many other things on my plate, and I kind of wish I did. But then when I got to grad school, I was like, I feel like I need to get out of here, even though I already had moved across the country. I was like, I kind of need to go. Yeah. And I mean, I spent, 3 months in South Africa, and I was working. It wasn't even like a study abroad. I was actually like adult working. So it was hard. I mean, it was hard, and I feel the same way. Like, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and I had traveled before. But I feel like anytime you go to a new place, it's sort of like that. So you sort of have that like naive perspective, which can sometimes be a good thing.
Yeah, each place is so different. you're going to have a different experience
Right.
everywhere you go.
Right. So I know you said it wasn't on your radar. What made you want to study abroad?
So I guess the college that I went to had a very large study abroad program, and it was something that a lot of students at my school did.
Okay.
So it was something that I had seen friends go abroad and things like that, and I I was just became fascinated with that idea, and so I met with my school's study abroad office, and I explained what my situation was. I was very upfront with
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
what my limitations are, and if is this going to be a possibility for me. And they kind of reassured me that we could find something that worked, and that was what made me want to go ahead with that plan.
Yeah. So how did the school help you prepare?
So I think the thing that helped me the most was really just choosing where I wanted to go abroad.
Okay.
Um, the the school had a variety of programs that these are people who are working as study abroad programs. They know what a lot of what's available in the
Yeah.
sense of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
healthcare or things like that. My initial idea was that I wanted to go to India,
Okay.
which I realized was probably a horrible idea for me as someone who has an immune deficiency
Right.
and
Right.
gets infections all the time. India was not going to work out.
Right.
So that was like a quick realization.
But
And
was that like a letdown for you, or was it like, because I know,
it
I
was,
mean, with chronic illness, it's like you always have to adapt and sometimes like change your expectations. But was that, I mean, even though you have to change those expectations, it can still be a letdown. So was it?
yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of a letdown in the sense that, it was something I was excited about, but
Yeah.
I was very quickly, kind of got over that very quickly because although that wasn't the best match for me,
Right.
the study abroad office at my school had some recommendations of other
Okay.
places,
Yeah.
and they talked to me, they showed me like pictures and stuff of those places, and I very quickly got really excited about those places instead. So as I mentioned, I went to northern Norway, and
Yeah.
that was actually one of the first recommendations from my school, which seems like it's a very strange place to study abroad because it's
Right.
not a
Right.
very popular choice.
Right. Like it's not a huge tourist attraction.
No, and I was in a fairly small, like I was in a city still, but it was a small city.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but one of the, I guess, reassuring factors for me was I was going to a university that had a whole hospital on campus.
Okay.
So I was really walking distance from any sort of healthcare I would need,
Yeah.
which,
Everything was more accessible.
and I obviously hoped that I would never need those, but it's just that sort of like, blanket of reassurance that if something would go wrong, I had this university hospital
Right.
right there.
Right.
So that was something that was definitely like a positive for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. I feel like anytime I travel, even for like pleasure, I always check to see what the closest hospital is to me and like if there's a pharmacy or if I can get my medications in case something happens because you never know.
Right. And, I had friends who had studied abroad in like, rural villages in Africa or
Right.
on some
Right.
island. And, although they had such amazing experiences and, I'm jealous of all of their pictures and
Right.
everything, realistically, that was not going to be the first place I traveled to.
Yeah. 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 Especially as like the first place you're going out of the
Exactly.
country, especially by yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you talked about like the study abroad office, but does your school have a like disability services office? And were they
Yes.
helpful in this at all?
Yeah, so we have a disability office that was kind of paired with they called it academic advising. So they pretty much
Okay.
did all of the, accommodations and those kinds of resources that you might need.
Yeah.
And it is really important that if you get accommodations in your school, that you can have those accommodations abroad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
um, for me, I didn't have any huge accommodations that were necessary for in the classroom, but um, they have resources where they can help you make sure that that is something that you get as well. My biggest concern in that sense was my living
Yeah.
accommodations. I am not good with stairs,
Yeah.
so I needed to make sure that I was either living somewhere that was going to be on the first floor or that I had an elevator.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was something that they were able to coordinate, and it turned out that the place that they had set up had an elevator, so it wasn't a problem at all for me, but they were willing to help me out if that was an obstacle that
That's
I had
good.
encountered.
Yeah. I know a lot of places, especially abroad, have don't have elevators or have elevators but they're so small like you can only fit in, so if you had like a walker or a wheelchair you wouldn't be able to fit in, so it's like those are things that you have to think about, like that extra layer that you have to strategize about that a lot of other people don't think about. So that's great that your school was helpful in that sense.
Yeah, yeah, and it would have really sucked if I had gotten there and then realized I couldn't get to where I was supposed to live.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And I mean, you were at a school and you still had those resources, but there's like that extra layer of panic, I guess, when you're abroad. Like, what do I do
Yeah,
in case
exactly.
something happens? So, I mean, clearly you didn't have challenges where you lived, but did you face any other challenges while you were abroad?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the challenges that I faced on a day-to-day basis, um, you know, living at my home school were things that did translate abroad. Simple things, just like getting around. Some on days where I would have bad pain days,
Yeah.
walking around is a challenge. So, I my living accommodations, I was about a 15-minute walk from the university. But one of the things that became really important for me was to, uh, you know, rely on the public transportation,
Yeah.
which was available and was really easy for me to use abroad.
Yeah.
So, it was definitely worth it for me to add an extra 15 minutes onto that commute to take a bus.
Yeah. Rather than
And
be in pain or be tired when you get somewhere.
exactly. And I think doing that also translated to being able to like go and explore new areas, and go and do the fun things I wanted to do while abroad.
Yeah.
While some of my friends who I had met abroad might walk there, I would say, hey, I'm going to meet you there on the
Right.
bus.
Right.
And that was something that allowed me to just get out and do more as well.
Yeah. Did the people you were traveling with or people that you were with have problems with that? Or were they sort of understanding? Like, did you
They were,
disclose, like, oh, I have a health condition, so I'm going to do things a little bit different? Or,
yeah, I usually didn't bring up my health condition unless it was something that I knew was going to be affecting what we were doing.
yeah.
And everybody who I met was really understanding, and they, would come with me on the bus if I wanted to do
Right.
that
Right.
instead, or, I just helped me out if I needed. Everyone was really understanding in that sense. And, I was living with a group of we were in like a shared apartment area.
Okay.
And I was with 15 other Norwegian students.
Oh, wow.
So it was we had like a shared kitchen and common area, and then we all had our own bedrooms.
Okay.
And so it was a really cool experience because I was getting to, become friends with people who lived in Norway their whole lives.
Yeah.
And they wanted me to experience everything.
Right.
That was in the area. So they really were really helpful in, helping me get to the different things I needed and just supporting me in that way.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the best reasons why I recommend anybody study abroad or travel is you're really like immersed in somebody else's culture. So you really have like an understanding of somebody else's culture. And it's so interesting and great to interact with people that are different from you.
Yeah, it was a really great experience. I think one of my favorite parts of being abroad was those relationships I got to form with all different people, and it was a very eclectic group in our apartment, which made it even better. And I got to see how they did things. Which was really eye-opening in that sense.
Yeah. I know since I've seen your travel pictures that you traveled quite a bit while you were in Norway. So were there any challenges in that sense while traveling, going from place to place and not staying in the city you were in?
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the most difficult things to coordinate. I was grateful to have one of my friends from my home university also was in Norway.
Okay.
So the two of us kind of buddied up and we went on some excursions to other countries. We went to Ireland and Switzerland, which was really fun. But it was, I guess, first and foremost exhausting.
Yeah.
Which... I'm somebody who wants to do everything and anything.
Yeah, me too.
And pack it all in.
Yeah.
So I did have to kind of realize that I was going to need to probably cross some things, take some things off my schedule, which was okay.
Right.
And kind of plan in that little buffer time. And there were, one specific instance comes into mind when I was staying in Germany for a short time. We were doing the Eurail train.
Oh yeah.
To different countries. So we were kind of traveling through Germany, and we really struggled with the public transportation there.
Yeah.
That was something that was really challenging for me. The buses it wasn't working out, and I couldn't get my stuff on the bus, and so we were kind of stumped. What ended up, I realized you gotta be flexible. Like, we kind of, me and my friend sat down and we were like, okay, realistically, I can't walk half an hour to our hotel.
Right.
How is this gonna work? We ended up, I guess they have in a lot of cities around here now, those little scooters.
Oh, yeah.
That you can just pick up. Those saved my butt.
Yeah.
So just things like that, we didn't plan for this, but we saw people on these scooters and we were like, okay, that's the way to do this.
Right. And it's a more like cost effective way than taking like a taxi, because the taxis in Europe are so expensive.
Yeah, and it was really fun too.
Yeah. I mean, you still got to like see places and like be on the streets. Yeah,
we ended up doing that like for the rest of the time there, because it was just a great way to, instead of walking around the city, just to take the little scooter around.
Right.
So that was a really great alternative that we had kind of come across on the fly.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you had said a little while ago that you had never lived or like been abroad before, but I know a lot of people with chronic illnesses still live at home. Did you have experience living on your own? Like, did you live in a dorm before you went abroad? And how was
Yes.
that? I mean, how was that transition from like living at home to living in a dorm to living abroad?
Yeah, so I had lived in a dorm for 3 years before going abroad.
Okay.
And that was my first time, not being with my parents
Yeah.
in the dorm. And then I, went abroad, and it was definitely an adjustment.
Right.
I had to learn to really be more independent,
Right.
which I, enjoyed in a sense. It was challenging.
Yeah.
When I was abroad, one of the things I had to do was cook for myself all of my meals.
Yeah.
So when I was at my university, I had a dining hall and things like that.
Right.
But now I'm cooking for myself. So that was something that I enjoyed doing. It was also sometimes difficult if I wasn't feeling well, but I found ways to, make that, just incorporate that into like my day to day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, things like one of the challenges of being abroad is, if you have medications and things like that, I had to make sure I had that all planned out
Right.
beforehand.
Right. Like either getting it refilled for that length of period at home or figuring
Yeah.
out a pharmacy there.
Yeah, and I ended up getting all of my medications beforehand and
Yeah.
bringing it with me, which
Yeah.
is something that I was really grateful for doing because, I just didn't have to worry about it. I knew I had everything I needed.
Right.
And
Right.
I wouldn't run into any issues. So
Yeah.
that was just like one less thing I had to worry about.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is also sort of difficult sometimes depending on your medications, just because some pharmacies won't let you fill for a 3 or 6 month time, or I mean, just traveling with medications makes me nervous sometimes.
It is.
Because I mean, you have to keep it. You worry about keeping it in like your checked luggage or like your larger luggage in case something happens to it. But then you're carrying 3 months or 6 months or however long worth of medication in your carry-on, and then you worry about going through security. Like,
Yeah.
what's gonna happen?
Nerve wracking.
Yeah.
I did spend, I think, at least a month on the phone, like nearly every other day with my pharmacy, the insurance company,
Right.
before I went abroad,
Right.
to be able to figure out how I can get all of my medications.
Yeah.
And I ended up being able to get all of those, and they, were able to work it out. But I was glad I had started that plan a few months prior, because
Right.
I was not expecting to run into so many of those obstacles.
Right. I feel like that's like the overarching theme of sort of studying
Yeah.
abroad or traveling is like always plan ahead, but don't be upset when things don't work out.
Yeah.
Like
Be
you still
flexible.
have to be flexible and like adapt to the situations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for traveling, my kind of plan was, as you said, I didn't want to have everything in my checked luggage because who knows what might happen.
Yeah. I mean, I've had
So
things stolen out of my checked luggage before, and
Yeah,
it's just like, oh goodness.
I carried almost everything in my carry-on luggage. A couple of my medications I couldn't carry the full
Yeah.
6 months on my person
Right,
while traveling.
right.
So I had to put a couple extra months in checked luggage.
But you
I
still had the bulk of
Yeah.
it with you, just in case.
Right. So if that disappeared, I still had enough to go for like 4 months.
Right.
And
Which
I
gives
had
you
to-
enough time to figure out what to do
Exactly.
in the meantime.
Exactly. and I brought, paper copies of my each prescription
Yeah.
of medical records, just in case if anybody gave me trouble, like I had that
Yeah, like you have that
in
documentation.
paper.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is smart.
Yeah, and thankfully I had no trouble whatsoever
Yeah.
going through customs or anything like that.
Yeah.
But just in case, it's
Yeah.
always good to have that.
Yeah. I have never had problems with like medications going through security, except for I've heard a story of somebody who didn't have their medications in their original bottle, like a friend of a friend didn't have it in their original bottle and had them in those like daily like
Yeah.
pill sorter things, and they didn't take them away, but they had to test every single pill, even if they were the
Gosh.
same. They had to test every single pill, and it was like 3 weeks worth of medications,
Oh
every single
gosh.
pill, to see what kind of medication it was, so in order to
Yeah,
make sure like they're not like smuggling something. So that's like a big thing now. I make sure everything's labeled in the original bottle because I never want that to
definitely.
happen.
Definitely.
And I used to travel. When I went to South Africa, I traveled with, I had a port and was doing saline infusions every, like twice a week or once a week. So I literally had to carry a suitcase full of like liters of saline and
Just
all my port
saline.
supplies for 3 months. And that's something like I had to check because it's so heavy.
Yeah,
And
you
of
can't
course,
carry that.
right. And of course, like the airlines were fine with it. And I didn't have to pay for that one suitcase because it was considered medical supplies. But I was like, well, if something happens, like I had like 2 liters on me, but if something happened to that whole suitcase, like what was I
Yeah.
going to do?
Yeah, that's a scary thought, You're kind of
Yeah.
just hoping that
I mean, at that point, yeah,
mostly.
because that's something like it's not like a typical, like quote unquote medication that I could just get at a pharmacy. So I
Right.
would have to have more shipped to my home in the United States and then have it shipped to me wherever I was,
Right.
which is not only costly, but still something could happen to it then.
You don't want to think about that.
I know, I know. And I mean, I now that I have my feeding tube, I take like the cans of feed with me places, and I worry about that tube just because it's not like a typical what you would think of as like a medical supply. Like it looks like the cans look like a little protein shake, so it just looks like
Right.
taking exercise equipment places. So I worry about that. And I mean, they always stop me at customs just to like swab it and check to make sure. But I mean, I haven't had a problem with that either just because I've had documentation. So I feel like that's like a big tip for people is to make sure you have all the documentation just in case.
Definitely. Yeah, in case anything happens, you
Yeah.
just want to have that there.
Yeah. Because you never know.
Yeah, right.
Do you have any other tips for people that are interested in studying abroad?
I think one of the things that was really useful for me as well was the university where I studied abroad in Norway. They
Yeah.
had like an orientation period for international students, and they gave a lot of really useful information for me there, just about where can I go for if I'm having, an emergency situation, or, if you need to, um, if you don't have a primary care doctor and you need to see somebody, where to go.
Yeah.
So, I would definitely recommend, if there's not that sort of orientation period where they have that information, reach out to somebody who is the, international student coordinator, and set up a time to discuss those things,
Yeah.
because that's something that you want to have, just to know, and in case that you run into anything.
Yeah.
Another thing that also comes to mind is I was there for from August to December.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I didn't even think about before going abroad was the flu.
Oh, yeah.
And that was something that I realized that I didn't think about in about September, when I'm starting to see things about flu shots.
Right.
So I didn't realize that in Norway, where I was studying, flu shots aren't very common.
Oh,
It's really only given to people who have pre-existing conditions,
okay.
which I did have,
Right.
but I needed to sort of sort out how does that work? How do I get the flu
Right,
shot?
right. Do you need like a
And
prescription or?
right. So for me, I just had to basically vouch that I had a pre-existing condition, and I could go to they had a vaccine center. But
Okay.
that's something to think about as well, is if you're going to need seasonal vaccines like a flu shot.
Yeah.
Is that something that you can get abroad
Yeah,
in that sense?
yeah. Or even thinking about, I mean, there are places that you need vaccinations before you go in the
Right.
US.
Yeah.
So thinking about that too and how that will affect you and will that affect you? Or if you have to
Yeah.
take, I mean, when I was in Africa, when I was in Mali, I had to take like malaria medication. So will that interact with other medications that I'm taking and thinking about those things too along those
Yeah.
lines?
It's definitely important to, have a conversation with your doctor
Yeah.
and any specialist about, first and foremost, your plans to go abroad, and
Yeah.
what you're going to what you're going to need, and then also anything that might interact with your treatments.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those are some very helpful tips. I appreciate it. Do you have
Yeah.
anything else to add before we play a little lightning round travel game?
I just have to add that I think studying abroad is such a great experience, and
Yeah.
although it might look a little bit different for somebody with a chronic illness, it's not something that should hold you back, or you should completely take off your radar because of a
Yeah.
chronic illness.
Yeah.
It's something that you can make work, and it's still a really fulfilling experience.
Yeah. And there, I mean, it's not like you're in it by yourself. You had your school to help you, and there are so many resources online that can help with the planning process, and you have your
Absolutely.
doctors and things like that. So it's definitely, I agree, it's definitely doable.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're going to play a little travel game. You're going to answer the question with the first thing that comes to your mind. Some of them are like a
Okay.
this or that, or some of them are just like regular questions. Are you ready?
All right. Fun. Yes.
So, favorite place that you've been?
I think the favorite place I've been is Lofoten Islands in Norway.
Oh.
It was a little string of islands that I visited, and we saw the northern lights there.
Oh, yeah. And I was very
And-
jealous.
It was so beautiful, and just beautiful landscapes, and it was just a very magical place.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm going to add that to my bucket list now.
Definitely.
So, city you want to go to?
I really want to go to Berlin.
Okay.
It's a city that I did not see in Germany, and something that I really would like to see. I think it's such a cool cultural place.
Yeah, I agree with that too. That's one of mine on my list as well. So, attraction that you want to visit anywhere in the world.
Ooh, an attraction. I would really like to go to the Louvre in France.
Okay.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
And there's so many.
I know. I feel like once you start traveling too, it becomes an addiction. Like once you
know,
experience other things, you're like, I want to go all of these places now.
No. It's like, how can you choose?
I know. I know. That's a good one though. The Louvre is a good one. I have yet to go there, but I was actually
Yeah,
supposed to go there this year, but coronavirus had other plans.
Yeah, that throws a wrench in things.
Yeah. So, beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Yeah, I could see that.
I'm a mountains person.
Aisle seat or window seat?
Window. I'm definitely window.
Really? Ugh. See,
Absolutely.
I'm the person who has to get up like every hour. Like I can't sit still, and I
I
like
will
want to
sacrifice.
stand and go to the bathroom and like anything, be
Yeah,
nosy in the aisle.
I will sacrifice getting up for the window seat just so I can, rest my head
Just
on
so
the
you can lean
window.
over.
That's worth it for
All
me.
right, all right. So one thing that you always carry with you, or multiple things,
One thing I always carry with me.
other than your
Um,
phone.
yeah, I mean, I do always have
Yeah.
that. I, okay, well, relating to my phone though, is a portable charger. That was crucial for me.
Yeah.
Um, and I
I don't know
always
how people don't travel without them, honestly, because I feel like, especially if I'm like on a trip, I always want to take pictures of stuff. And then it's like,
yeah,
well, my phone's dying now. This is not helpful to me.
yeah, I don't know. I take even when I'm not traveling, I
Yeah.
always feel like I have that. Um, and I mean, now if you're going anywhere,
Yeah.
you always have a mask.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm gonna have to say, for today's life,
Yeah.
I always have my mask,
Yeah.
and I have a variety in my bag. I have, I think, four.
So do I. I will say though, even before Corona, like just because I am immunocompromised, I used to travel with a mask anyways, and I used to wear them on a plane. So I have gold and silver, and like I love anything like sparkly. So I have a gold and a silver and a sparkly mask that I always used to wear on the airplanes, and I was like, I don't care if you're looking at me just because
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
had the
I'm fine
same.
with it, and now everybody has to wear them. So
I know I had the same, and now it's like I feel like it's. I just feel like it's so much more accepted.
I know. People don't look at me like I'm crazy anymore, or
I
like
know.
want to stay away from me because they think I'm like contagious with something.
That is the one thing that I think, I used to always feel, I guess, kind of self-conscious when
Right,
I wore it, and
right.
now it's like totally normal.
Silver lining of the pandemic. All right, something that you always forget to pack.
Oh, this is kind of dumb, but I do always forget this. Um, I wear both glasses and contacts,
Yeah.
and whenever I'm wearing, I always forget to pack the other one. And it's really like dumb, and I should remember.
Yeah.
But I have so many times been wearing contacts when I travel, and then not brought my glasses,
Yeah.
and then just been like, oh man,
Great. I've actually done that before too, and it's like, oh, well,
You think I could remember this?
yeah, yeah. But it's something like you don't think about because it's just like
No.
something you do daily.
Yeah, it's that little thing.
Yeah. All right. Best piece of travel advice for anybody.
Ooh, okay, best piece of travel advice is to go out of your comfort zone.
That's a good
Um,
one.
and if something seems a little scary, take it one step at a time, and you'll get to see really really cool places
Yeah.
and do some really cool things along the way.
Yeah. I would have to agree with that one. All right. Well, that's our time with Erin. You can actually see some of Erin's travel pictures at Erin's underscore Arctic Adventure on Instagram. And tune into our next episode. Subscribe on all platforms. You can also follow us on YouTube for the subtitles of all of our episodes. You can follow us on social media at Vacayability. And also, don't forget to visit our website, vacayability.com, to rate and review your favorite businesses, attractions, hotels, and more, all based on different types of accessibility. Thanks, Erin.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we'll hopefully have you again another time.